I make this statement in response to your directive that I brief Parliament on the voter verification exercise going on in the country. This exercise is an important milestone giving effect to Article 1(4) of the Constitution, which provides that, I quote, "The people shall express their will and consent on who shall govern them and how they should be governed through regular, free and fair elections of their representatives or through referenda. Free and fair elections is therefore the bedrock on which our government is established. When we undermine that bedrock, we weaken the glue that keeps us together as a nation." Let me provide a brief context, Mr. Speaker. It's not lost on me that today is 6th of February, in common parlance known as Tarehe Sita. 44 years ago today, President Yoweri Museveni, who was then leader of the Uganda Patriotic Movement, launched a guerrilla war against the Uganda government, eventually overthrowing it in 1986. The declared reason for the guerrilla war was the failure to resolve peacefully the disputes about the 1980 elections. No wonder the preamble to our Constitution exhorts us to recall, and I quote, "our history, which has been characterized by political and constitutional instability." The government welcomes the report of the Committee on Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. I've had a conversation with the technical support of officials from NIRA. I would therefore like to assure the House that the Electoral Commission is doing the best with what they have. The Electoral Commission could not wait for the new NIRA registration kits. They are using the old kits, which are numbering only 2,703. These kits have been assigned to sub-counties, and they move to parishes and wards on a rotational basis. I am informed that due to delays in release of funds and procurement, the new kits, numbering about 5,000, have arrived at NIRA, but they are still being formatted. These new kits will not be used for the current voter update exercise, but will instead be used for the mass enrollment of citizens. Mr. Speaker, in my conversation with the Electoral Commission Chairman, I raised the question of the possibility of extending the deadline for the update. The Chairman told me that should the 10th February arrive when the exercise has not been completed, the Electoral Commission will announce measures for redress. For now, 10th February remains the deadline. What is being done in the current exercise, Mr. Speaker, is simply the compilation of raw data showing who is eligible to vote and where they should vote. After all the data has been captured, there will be a display process of the register. The display will allow for correction of the register, for instance, deleting non-citizens and the dead. This process is superintended by parish tribunals that are established by magistrates. These tribunals will determine any complaints and then forward the final data to the returning officer. The result of all these processes is what the citizens expect to be a credible and verifiable national voters register. Finally, in response to the concern that women of the Muslim faith are required to remove their religious dress for purposes of registration, I would like to give assurance that the Electoral Commission doesn't do anything that is different from what NIRA does. The women in question have national IDs. They therefore had to go through the standard procedures of NIRA in order for their full data to be captured, including having their photographs taken. In case there are any overzealous officials whose conduct insults the modesty of Muslim women, we undertake to investigate fully those instances and deal with such errant officers according to the law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question of DSOs, HISOs, FISOs, and so on, who are involved in this process, because legally they have no place at all. And as we hear, some of them are demanding for money from people. If you want me to recommend you 10,000, 20,000 shillings and so on, I thought the minister's statement would comment on that issue. And also, the demarcation question. It's raised many eyebrows. The Electoral Commission has merged some electoral areas in a couple of places. I don't know what formula they are using, because, you know, there are areas in the urban centers, where an LC1 chairperson superintends over more people than some colleagues in this House as members of Parliament. That's a fact in terms of numbers. Formula that is properly understandable and acceptable. The formula of numbers, even legally, is acceptable. So we want to understand how the Electoral Commission did that some councillors within the urban centers, where there were 3 councillors, now there's going to be 1 councillor. Is it because the population has lessened there? Obviously not, even according to the U-Board statistic. So what formula is being followed? Because we don't see the same formula apply across the country.
A while ago, the Honorable Odul asked the DP president, whose victory was stolen in 1980. And when those who went to Luwero returned, they did not restore that victory, but they became the government themselves. The procedural issue, Mr. Speaker, that Honorable Odul did ask a specific question.
Speaker, just 3 matters of concern to the Minister. After the matter of the Right Honourable former candidate, Amama Mbabazi, was presented in court, court made the following observations. 1, that the deployment and the use of technology should be followed up, whereas it's desirable, should be followed up by necessary regulation. I would like to ask the Minister how far with that matter. Secondly, the Minister, who I have a lot of respect for, clearly stated to this House that he would present comprehensive constitutional reforms for this House to discuss, and much of which would inform partly the issue touching electoral reforms in this case. And the country needs to know how far you've reached touching this matter. Finally, Right Honourable Speaker, the issue of our foreign nationals. Ugandans living in the diaspora have the desire to take part in the elections through voting, just like other countries, in different embassies and high commissions. We are doing voter update, and that is something we need to interest ourselves into, because they contribute to the development of this country, but they also remain our nationals that should take part in the elections. I would like to pose a question to the Honourable Minister in charge of Justice as to how far in implementing that matter to follow suit, just like the global trend is that nationals within the boundaries and those that are outside should take part in elections. Finally, we are going through a voter update exercise, and we have children that have gone back to school. I don't know who is picking up on, who is really concentrating on their records, so that we update the National Register with their involvement. So that would bring in the question of the Honourable Matthias Mpuuga, that he has talked about the comprehensive reforms that we need to address so that we have an election that is acceptable to all as a tool of democracy. Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
Honorable Kaye Bob.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I'm excited by the prospect of having the Honourable Norbert Mao having to answer to questions relating to transparency of elections at this moment in our constitutional history. Because for so long a time, he's been a victim. And if the next election in any way becomes botched by virtue of a wrongly assembled register, he will be both a culprit and an abettor of that fraud. So I am happy he's here to answer to these questions in earnest. I have a few issues for him, Honourable Speaker. One, what kind of register will finally come out of this process? Will it be biometric or manual? Aware of the trouble that we had in the last series of elections, courtesy of bearing different types of registers used concurrently at polling stations, and what that heralded in terms of transparency, especially in trying to curtail multiple voting. Two, Right Honourable Speaker, the Honourable Nsereko made allusion to part of the duty that the Honourable Mao owes this nation, namely to offer leadership on key reform issues that have been a subject of court variously, the Supreme Court, including particular and peculiar orders to be followed, including the correction of the nature of register. I want to be specific. The Honourable Mao is alive to the ruling in the Karali Stephen University, the Attorney General, to which there was no appeal lodged by the Attorney General, that the continuation of disenfranchising Ugandans in the diaspora and prisoners is a serious violation of their right to exercise their civic rights. So are you going to abet this continuation of this violation? It was declared unconstitutional and a violation of their rights to vote. So as a Minister of Justice and as a former victim, if there is such a thing as a former victim of disenfranchisement, are you prepared to abet this illegality and violation of the Constitution? Lastly, second last, I am aware some months back, the Honourable Mao was very warm and enthusiastic about constitutional reforms and electoral reforms, and that the Speaker will not extend my time. Can allow me to, he has indicated that propensity not to extend my time. That Honourable Speaker, I'm aware the Honourable Mao's enthusiasm has since gone down because allegedly he had a very good document on reforms, electoral and constitutional, including the transition. And because of that last statement, some people broke into his office and saw everything, the document, the computers, and he has nothing now to work with. May we know whether he's working on something fresh or he needs help to go back to his text that offered this country some gleam of hope that would transition. Because the question I would have asked the Speaker, you're going to answer, and of course, I have a procedural matter I would reserve to the Right Honourable Speaker related to that matter. I thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Minister.
That's a general principle which we should all accept. Secondly, if you can persuade, why should you direct? It's important that we also do not underrate our power of persuasion. In any case, the people are busy persuading the Electoral Commission on your behalf. The very people you represent are speaking for themselves to the Electoral Commission now. I propose that we give the Electoral Commission time. I do believe that they will do the right thing because elections are about the people. Concerning the workers, I have consulted with the Minister of Local Government, and I wish to inform this House that under Section 131, there will be an amendment so that the workers don't get excluded. I hope that assures the Honourable Katambuka that the workers will be included. On the question raised by the Honourable Karubanga Jacob Atenyi, basically it is about those who are considered to be stateless. Let me state here that the fact that your tribe is not in the Constitution doesn't mean that you cannot vote. Everybody, we feel that everything should be included in the Constitution. The Constitution is a supreme document and doesn't need to have everything. The Ugandan Constitution is 10 times the size of the American Constitution. And I don't think the American Constitution has served the American people any worse than ours. Therefore, that conversation about everybody wanting to be in the schedule is another conversation. Let's separate it from the issue of voting. The right of the diaspora to vote is the policy of the government that the diaspora should vote. What we intend to do is now to translate that policy into law. But the policy is that our diaspora, who are daily being celebrated for their contribution to the government, should not be excluded. On the use of technology, I want to already took the bill to the cabinet. And the cabinet had some reservations and referred the bill to a committee which is chaired by the Honorable Chris Bariomunsi. So I hope on Monday he will report to cabinet. The use of technology is very important to deal with the question of ballot stuffing, where people who never showed up at a polling station vote. In this case, the record in the machine must tally with the ballot papers that are cast. We have even created an offense, a term of imprisonment for up to 5 years for any presiding officer under whose watch the votes cast don't tally with the votes that are recorded in the machine. We are even proposing, it is in the law, and in any case the law will come here after it has left cabinet, and you can improve it as you wish. We are even proposing body cameras so that whatever goes on at a polling station can be on record. Now, concerning the question of boundaries, this is under Section 120 onwards. These boundaries are the exclusive duty of the Electoral Commission, Mr. Speaker. On the question of whether the security officials are meddling, I think that's a matter that we can have to deal with, because for long we have insisted that the Electoral Commission must be in charge and must be seen to be in charge and not to be ousted by anybody or authority. Now, let me state the position of the law. A national ID is a prima facie evidence of citizenship. So no one can again start asking questions. If somebody is saying that the national ID was got fraudulently, that's another matter. But on account of disenfranchising somebody, you cannot start raising a lot of issues. The Honorable Ababiko talked about APA. I want to state here that this is a matter which remains contentious, but as far as I'm concerned, it is not a question of where APA is located. It is a matter of Ugandans having the right to vote. So we should not mix up the contentions of the people about where APA belongs, whose land it is, and so on, with the question of voting. I am not here to talk about the contentions about APA. I'm here to guarantee that anybody who feels like voting in APA can go and vote. In the same way that I can go and change my polling station to Kololo tomorrow. I can change my polling station to Masaka in the Honorable Matthias Mpuuga's polling station. And there is, provided I can prove that I have a banana plantation there, that will allow me to vote. In one election, I was registered in Omoro County because I have a garden there. The grounds on which you can change your polling station are in the law. So the question of the APA is a subject of a commission of inquiry. and I believe they will deal with it. I want to assure members that the Electoral Commission will speak for itself. Now, there are ways in which we can influence the work of the Electoral Commission. We have got the National Consultative Forum of Political Parties, which is chaired by the NRM, and the deputy chair is from the National Unity Platform. I would request that that forum discusses some of these issues, because the players in this election are the political parties, and they don't really have to raise all the issues on the floor of Parliament. It is possible for them to sit and face the Electoral Commission, and if need be, they can even challenge any decision that would disenfranchise somebody in the court. I had to go to court in order to be put back on the voters' register. On the question of the census, I think it is not really about the census. It is about who is qualified to vote. I want to state here, Mr. Speaker, that I was not counted in the last census. But I'm on the voters' register and I'm going to vote. So we shouldn't really mix up the issue of the census, that somebody is using the census to raise issues. I don't think there is a census book where Ugandans who were 18 after the age of 20, after 2014, will be told that you will not be registered because you are not on the 2014 data. That is not the basis of registering voters. The basis of registering voters is the data captured by NIRA. And once NIRA has you on their database, then the Electoral Commission works with NIRA to put your name on the National Voters Register. And it really has nothing to do with whether you were counted or not. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable has misled all of us here that there is likely to be a council which has 5 members. Obviously, he was quoting the law, but I don't think he is very well acquainted with it, because under Section 124, the law says that no council shall have less than 10 members. So now where do you get this fiction apart from a novel? If you are reading the Local Government Act, and then you are quoting a novel,
Order.
Obviously, there will never be a council with 5 members because the law puts the minimum at 10.
Thank you. Honourable Minister will conclude.
The issues that have been raised by the Right Honourable Matthias Mpuuga are very important. And since his arrival on the national stage, seeking to become a national leader, obviously it is important that that the government is seen to be taking him seriously. But let me say that the Right Honourable Mpuuga has arrived, but these issues had arrived before him. These issues had already arrived, and we are definitely dealing with them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.